Welcome! Let's dive into today's summary in a storytelling style. Jake had always been someone who felt overwhelmed by life. Each day was a blur, a race against time to tick off endless tasks, but he never felt fulfilled. He'd spent years bouncing from one project to another, convinced that productivity was the answer to his struggles. Yet despite his best efforts, the sense of accomplishment always seemed just out of reach. It was as if he was constantly working harder, but somehow going in circles. His to-do list grew longer, his energy drained faster, and at the end of the day, he felt like he'd done everything, but achieved nothing. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Jake came across a video that caught his eye. The title was, "Feel Good Productivity: How to Achieve More of What Matters to You" by Abdaal. Jake was skeptical. Another self-help guru promising the secret to success. But something about the video intrigued him. Maybe it was the fact that he was already exhausted, desperate for a change. So he clicked on it. The video started with Ali speaking about a radical idea. Productivity wasn't just about getting more done. It was about aligning what you did with what truly mattered. Ali spoke with such passion that Jake couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The idea of feeling good about productivity, instead of being burnt out and stressed, sounded like exactly what he needed. The more Jake listened, the more it made sense. Ali's approach was different from anything Jake had ever heard. He described the traditional view of productivity as a narrow, efficiency-driven mindset that often leads to burnout. But his new framework was about finding joy in the process of getting things done, not just the result. Ali talked about the importance of creating a sustainable rhythm, rather than striving for the endless, unattainable goal of perfect productivity. Inspired by this new perspective, Jake decided to take action. The first thing Ali suggested was to figure out what truly mattered to him. Jake was surprised. He had always thought he was clear on his goals, but when he really thought about it, he realized there were things he was spending time on that weren't aligned with his values or long-term desires. He made a list of the things that were most important to him: building meaningful relationships, learning and personal growth, and having time for creativity. It was eye-opening. Jake had spent so much time chasing external achievements like promotions, accolades, and titles that he'd neglected the things that would actually make him feel fulfilled in the long run. Ali's advice was clear. If you don't align your efforts with your core values, you'll end up feeling disconnected and empty. For Jake, this realization was a wake-up call. He realized that he had been spending far too much time on activities that, while productive in a conventional sense, weren't bringing him closer to his true goals. Next, Ali recommended that Jake simplify his to-do list. The long, sprawling list of tasks that Jake had been using as a measure of success was actually keeping him stuck. Ali's suggestion was to focus on just a few key things each day that would have the most impact on his goals. Instead of filling the day with small, low-priority tasks, Jake would choose a few things that aligned with his values and would give him a sense of accomplishment. Jake took this advice to heart. He narrowed down his tasks to just 3 key activities each day: working on a personal project he was passionate about, connecting with a close friend or family member, and dedicating time to learning something new. It was a drastic shift, but Jake immediately felt the difference. Each day felt more purposeful. He was no longer overwhelmed by the mountain of tasks he thought he had to complete. Instead, he focused on what truly mattered to him. The real magic happened when Jake stopped judging himself for not being productive in the traditional sense. For so long, he had felt guilty if he wasn't constantly working or achieving. Ali's words helped him realize that productivity didn't have to mean a relentless pursuit of tasks and outcomes. It was okay to take time for self-care, to recharge, and to do things that nourished his soul. One of the most transformative parts of Ali's approach was the concept of energy management rather than time management. Jake had always believed that success came from working harder and squeezing as much as possible into each hour of the day. But Ali argued that productivity wasn't just about managing time, it was about managing energy. Jake realized that he was expending his energy on tasks that drained him, things that didn't bring him joy or fulfillment. By focusing on activities that energized him, he could maintain a high level of productivity without burning out. He started paying attention to when he felt most energized during the day. Instead of forcing himself to work in the evenings when his energy was low, he began to prioritize tasks that required focus and creativity during his peak energy hours. The next step in Ali's framework was to incorporate breaks as part of the productivity process. Jake was astonished by how often he had neglected rest. The idea of taking regular breaks, stepping away from work, and engaging in activities that helped him recharge seemed so simple, yet so powerful. Ali emphasized that rest wasn't a sign of laziness, but an essential part of maintaining long-term productivity. Without adequate rest, Jake's brain would be less efficient, and his creativity would suffer. Jake started taking more breaks throughout the day. He'd go for walks, meditate, or do something creative, like sketching or playing music. He quickly noticed that these breaks weren't just refreshing. They actually improved his focus and energy when he returned to work. Rather than pushing himself through long, exhausting stretches of work, he learned to embrace the power of rest. Ali's concept of saying no was another game changer for Jake. For years, Jake had said yes to every opportunity, every project, and every meeting, thinking that saying no would make him seem unproductive or lazy. But Ali taught him that saying no was one of the most powerful tools for aligning his energy with his values. By learning to say no to things that weren't important, Jake could create space for the things that truly mattered. At first, it was hard for Jake to say no. He felt guilty, like he was letting people down. But the more he practiced, the easier it became. He realized that by saying no to things that didn't align with his goals, he was saying yes to the things that would truly make him happy and fulfilled. Over time, Jake began to feel a shift in his overall approach to life. He no longer viewed productivity as a competition or something that had to be constantly optimized. Instead, he saw it as a tool for creating a life that reflected his values and desires. It wasn't about working harder. It was about working smarter, aligning his actions with what brought him joy, and creating a sustainable balance between effort and rest. Ali's approach to productivity had given Jake a new sense of purpose and clarity. He wasn't just crossing tasks off a list anymore. He was actively shaping his life in a way that felt good to him. He was no longer chasing the approval of others, or trying to meet arbitrary standards of success. Instead, he was focusing on what truly mattered and what made him feel fulfilled. Months later, Jake looked back on his journey with gratitude. He had learned to enjoy the process of productivity, not just the outcome. He had discovered the power of aligning his actions with his values, managing his energy, and embracing rest. He no longer felt like a hamster on a wheel, endlessly chasing after success. Instead, he had found a rhythm that worked for him, a rhythm that felt good. Jake smiled to himself as he looked out the window, reflecting on how far he had come. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one where productivity was no longer a source of stress but a path to fulfillment. And it was all thanks to Ali's message. Feel-good productivity is about achieving more of what truly matters to you. With renewed clarity and purpose, Jake took a deep breath, ready to embrace the day with energy, intention, and, most importantly, joy. Closing. That's it for today's golden knowledge. Thanks for your valuable time. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps us grow and share more insights with you. And if there's a book you'd love to hear, drop its name in the comments. See you in the next one.